Hello, welcome back to Laser Cut and Fly RC Models. I'm the laser model guy, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to build the Aesop Popsie using a paper plan. Now, in previous series I've worked without a plan, but what I've done this time is I've sent the plan that I downloaded off the internet. I sent it to a company who produce A0 plans, and they charge £1.75 per sheet. So for £3.50 I've been able to get both sheets, which is the plan of the wing and the plan of the fuselage. And what I'm going to do now is, for those of you who don't build balsa planes using plans, I'm going to show you how to make a plane using the plan, and let's get on and do it. So this is the plan, and you can see what we've got here is a side view of the fuselage. We've got the tail fin there, the nose propeller or the spinner, the motor is going to be mounted in here, and undercarriage. And then here we've got what we call the plan view, which is looking at the aircraft from above. Now the way we're going to do this is we're going to build the side of the aircraft on here, or the bits that can be laid flat, and then we'll turn that side, we'll turn that upwards, or we'll make two sides of that, two copies of that, and then we'll stand those up and we'll put the formers in, and we will shape the aeroplane from the top using this pattern here, just by cutting these bars to the right size and then fitting the formers, and then that will give us the shape of the aircraft. So if we just have a look here, then what you can see is along the bottom here we've got this 3/16 balsa longeron, it's called, and what we will do is we will pin straight onto the map, or straight onto the plan. We will pin a piece of balsa along that line, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Now if we have a look at this here, here we've got F12. Now F12 is this component here, F12. So we can see that that's curved. So the side of our aircraft is going to be flat all the way along this line here. It's also going to extend up flat to the top of the cabin, and then coming back from here it'll only go as high as this line, because above that we're going to have a rounded bit. So it's going to be square where the cabin is, and then rounded down the back all the way to the tail, or to the tail and the rudder here. Okay, so if we have a look just here, what we can see is this is our piece of 3/16 balsa here, and the fuselage extends down beyond that. But if we have a look, this is F7, which is, we can see shown here, it's a plywood component, and that just comes, that will sit inside just like that. And then you can see that this part here, the lower part of the plan, is actually the centre we're seeing. If we were to drop a straight line from the centre of that, you'd find that that would line up on where the bottom of the airplane is shown on the side. So that's just a little pointer for us to not get confused about where the bottom of the side that we're going to build of the fuselage is. Now the next thing is, this part here is a very sharp curve. Now we can curve that using steam, and what I've done with this is I've curved a piece of balsa using steam, but then I've cut it. So instead of trying to get this whole curve, I'm doing it in two pieces. So that piece will sit right on the plan there, and then this piece will sit underneath, and then I'll clamp those together and glue them, and then sand this, and by doing it that way we'll be able to achieve a much sharper curve by using two pieces. So that's what I'm going to do. I've cut those, I'm going to stick them on, and I'm going to pin them straight onto the plan. And this is one that I did a little bit earlier, and you can actually see it's been pinned onto the plan. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just pin this down at this end. Now some people put the pins either side in order to protect the wood, but when we're using wood as thick as this, I find it's better when I put the pins straight through the balsa. So that's what I'm going to do, but it's your own choice. If you want to go either side and just pin it in place, you can, but me personally, I'm going to pin straight through the wood. So there's one. There's another, and now what I'm going to do is pin to the side just there, because I'm going to be bending this piece of balsa to shape, and so I want another one there because the curve gently comes round. I'm going to put it into place, all bent to shape, and then I'm going to put the top bit in, and then we'll start to put our uprights in. So that's one side completely finished, or the flat bit anyway. And so what I'm going to do now is remove all the pins, and then I'm going to build the second side right on top of this first one that we've done, so that they'll both be identical. And all I'll do is, when I'm pinning them on, I'll pin straight through into the first side that we've made. So there we are. Right, now I'm starting in the same place as I did before with this curved piece, and that's going to sit right on top there, and then join to our next piece, which will be right there in exactly the same way as we did the first one. So I'll start by pinning this down, and then in exactly the same way as we did before, I'm going to make or construct or build the next side. Just making sure everything's absolutely perfectly aligned. So that both sides are identical. Okay. So I'll just get a bit of glue on there. I'll clamp this in place and then carry on. Okay, and then what we'll do later, we'll use a little bit of sandpaper just to clean this up and make that absolutely perfect. A little clamp on there so we get a really good tight join. go. So I'll carry on with that and we'll get the second side made up. So that's both sides completed. What I'm going to do now is I'll remove the pins and then I'll separate the two sides and I'll show you what that looks like in just 1 minute. So then just go down between the two with a very fine blade and you can separate those two sides. So that's what we've got. Now when we put that on the plan view, you can see how that's going to come together. It's quite a big, could be quite a big fuselage, quite a big chunky thing. Okay, so next thing is for us to start cutting the top and bottom braces. So that's going to be a piece of 3/16 that we can cut just like that, and then that will go in between the two sides, top and bottom. So I'll just get on with that. Okay, so the way I think I'm going to go about this is I'm going to build it upside down, because we've got these nice flat edges on the top of the cabin, and we'll be able to build it all nice and level by using those flat surfaces, and then we can add the spacers and the formers in while it's, or the ones certainly in this main part of the body here, before we change anything. We can add those in, get those all firm and solid, and take it from there. So that's the way I think I'm going to do it. But the one thing that we have to bear in mind all the way through this is that former F6 and former F7, which are this former here and this former here, they've got these rows of holes which will bind the undercarriage on, the undercarriage bars. So we mustn't get those into a position where we're not able to get in with maybe a needle and thread to bind them. So we'll just leave those to one side for the moment, and we'll start to build the aeroplane just using the cross members without actually putting these two formers in, although we can put the other formers in. I just want to keep these separate because we may have to bind the undercarriage on before we assemble those. Okay, with that in mind. Okay, so that's how I'm going to start this process. When I come down and look across, I can see that these are perfectly parallel, perfectly in line. So I'm quite happy with that. Okay, so next I think I'll start cutting these main cross braces to start to build the structure at this end before we do anything down here. Okay. That fits perfectly in there. Good, so we'll just leave that for a couple of minutes and then I'll put this back former in. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is put this former in. Now we're upside down at the moment. This is the bottom end of the former because the two controls of the servos run through there to the back of the plane, as you can see from the plan just there. So what I'm going to do, just going to put a couple of pins in, just in here. One there. One just there. And then I'm going to use PVA glue along here, along the what would be the top of the fuselage, and then I'm going to wick super glue in down the sides. The reason I'm going to use PVA at this end is so that I can move it about a little bit while we're just making sure it's in exactly the right position. So bit of glue along the bottom there. And drop this in. Just there. What I'm going to do is just loop a little elastic band over there just to hold that in place. Now I'm just going to move this because the former is shown at the front of the upright, so I'm just making sure that it's flush with this side. Just doing that by feel at the moment. There we go. So what I'll do now is I'll just get a little bit of super glue and just put it in one or two places around the back, and that will wick into the join, and it will firmly stick it all together. Just a little bit of super glue in there. There we go. That should hold that perfectly. The reason I'm using super glue here is because we've got two different types of wood. We've got the ply and the balsa. And that should wick in now into that joint. Okay, we'll leave that for a couple of minutes. Okay, on this side of the plan just here we've got a pattern for our undercarriage, so I'm going to just mark this up now, and then I'm going to get a pair of pliers and I'll bend it accordingly. I've got 2mm stainless piano wire, so quite strong stuff, and that's what I'm going to be using. So I'll just have to cut this off at that point there. Okay, so now I've got the marks where the bends need to be, and all I have to do is bend it exactly to fit this shape. Make sure those marks are visible all the way around, and there we go, that's the first one marked up. Be dead easy to bend, just bend it at each of those points, and then there's a little kink on the front of this one because it has to line up with the front former there. but you'll see that later when I come to put them on. So I'll just mark this one up the same. And so there's the two pieces of wire now formed, and they're quite a reasonable fit to the pattern. And the key bit will be, though, once we fit them, getting them to match up, because they will need to join together like that. They'll be on their two formers, and they'll need to be soldered down at the bottom so that they form that shape. Okay, now the reason I've done this now is because we're about to fit the former, which is F7, and this is the one that's got the holes in where we need to fasten the undercarriage in. Now that one there, we'll be able to fit the undercarriage after that's fitted, because we can get access to both sides to thread. But once we fit the next one, the next former, which will go onto the front of there, it would be very, very difficult. It would be very, very difficult in that confined space to use thread there. So the idea would be to have this one, have the front part of the fuselage fastened onto this before we fit it. So I fitted this former, and I've put the back part of the undercarriage on that. You can see where it's stitched through the holes, and there's the former that will sit at the front, and this part of the undercarriage will be again stitched to that, and then they'll all join up with one another. So that's that. Next I'm going to put these side pieces in, F10, and let's see how well they fit. They're going to go in just there. Yep, absolutely perfect fit, so good. And what they'll do is, when it's turned up the other way, the aircraft, there'll be two pieces of balsa going right the way across inside, and the servos will be mounted between those two pieces of balsa. So that's how we're going to fit those in. I'll just fit these now. They actually fit in quite nice and snug, to be fair. Hold themselves in place nicely. I want them flush with the outside, so we've got a perfect flat surface. There. That should be good. Okay, I'll put the other one in, and then we'll carry on with the build. So the formers are in now, and we're beginning to get the shape. We've put our two side pieces in here with our two supports for the servos, and they'll sit just on those bars and be screwed in. We've also got the nose construction started now. So we've got F6, which is this former, and then this support is F5, then we've got F4 and F3, and they all combine, they slot in nicely, and they combine to set the right angle for F2 to offset the power of the motor, and also the fact that we've got a top wing, so it points slightly down and slightly to the right. And we've also fitted the front, which is F1, and we're now in a position where we can start constructing the nose. So this is C2 and C3, C3 being the 1.6mm ply and 3/16 balsa for C2, and C1, once I'm comfortable that these are firmly connected, firmly stuck, then we'll be able to put C1 on, and then the whole thing will go on the front, and then we'll be able to sand that down and get a nice smooth finish. Also, I'd like to just point out this. We've got these side panels here, which go at the front. These are the front sides, which when they go in, they'll be like that. Now if you have a look from the top, you can see that the profile for these, just here, it's flat on one side and it's curved on the other, so you've got to sand those to get the, you've got to sand those to get that profile. So you start off with a 3/16 balsa and then you bring it down to meet this profile here, and then that will mean that our nose blends in nicely when we put it all together. Okay, so that's where we are at the moment. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fasten the wheels together, the undercarriage, sorry. I'm going to use solder. I'll probably put a bit of copper wire around it just to help with the solder, help with the process, because it's sometimes difficult to get the solder to stick. So we'll bind it with copper wire and then I'll solder over to make a good finish. Okay, so I've managed to solder the undercarriage, so that's all solid now. I didn't need to use copper wire in the end. The solder ran quite well on it. Also, we've now put the rest of C1, C2 and the C3 together, and I've sanded those down, or I've roughly sanded them down. I'll smooth sand them in a little while just to get a better finish. But that's the front end, and that'll go straight on there. Also the top parts of the cowling, they're ready to go on, and they are 1/16 balsa, and I've curved those using water. I just dipped them in warm water, curved them round and got the correct shape. So they'll go on there, either side. The other one will go on over there, and then they will come to meet the front when that goes on, and then I'll be able to sand it all down and make a nice smooth nose cone. So that's where we're at so far, and I think I'll just go ahead now and put that bit together, and then I'll show you what that looks like at the end, and then we'll quickly finish off the fuselage. So I've put the cowling on as we talked about, and I've also clamped the back end and fitted the back wheel. I've put the formers in and put these stringers on in order to complete the fuselage. What I think I'll do now is I'm going to stop for the day now, and in the next video I'm going to show you how we build the wing. The fuselage is more or less completed. I've still got to put the hatch in and one or two other things, but I'll show you those in the next video. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.